Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. E te whānau o tēnā rohi o Rotorua, tēnā koutou. Ko Chris toko wingoa, no Mangari East Hau. Ko Manga Kiki te maunga, ko Manukau me Waitemata te moana, ko Harania te awa. Nā mihi kia koutou I te mainai. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I'm very humbled and indeed honoured to have received an invitation to speak to you today very quickly. Humbled more so from the talk that we've just heard. So I offer this missive to you with an apology because I can't aspire to that korero. Thank you in particular to Kataraina Hatamoana and Awhina. Sorry Awhina that we were so late getting our stuff to you. And I'd just like to acknowledge Kaumatua and councillors, also the council CEOs, ladies and gentlemen. You'll notice that I talked of two moana in my mihi, Manukau and Waitemata. They were joined by a tiny little stream. Indeed, most of it didn't even have a name I could find. I was brought up on that stream, and sadly, when I was 7 years old, I saw it die. And I think that more than anything caused me to pursue the career that I'm in all over. I saw that stream die. Now that stream's an interesting little trickle of water. You could jump across it in one leap. I could dam it with mud in about half an hour and see the tuna come up to it. But if you followed it all the way through, up into Otahutu, up to Atara, and then out to Paumnua, it went under a culvert and it connected with another stream. And these two streams, these tiny little threads, held apart two great oceans, the Pacific and the Tasman. And at times during floods, they would join them all together. And it's interesting that these forces were sometimes underneath an old road. So what I got from that in thinking about this mihi for today was that very small things can have big influence on massive events. And that often you can be walking right across it without even noticing it's there. So this image here, the introduction, has some meaning also. Mauo in the background, the environment, where we live, our place. The port, it's what we're doing to it at the moment, it's how we live. And then our future, represented here by Caleb and Tapuia, recently graduated. They started their careers with me and I'm very proud to know them through the RENA. So out of RENA came these two very smart MSc students, now with jobs and fantastic careers. What we try and do, our background out at Tauranga, is run a tertiary partnership between the wānanga and the university, and to provide stepping stones for learning. And it's indeed this pathway and my recent experiences since I've been back for 5.5 years that I'm still learning the importance of mataranga, which is the essence of the talk. And that we were asked to talk about expectations and synergies. The synergies are very obvious and you'll see those. The expectations, I think you here, Māori, know the expectations, the scope of expectations from Western science. I don't think Western scientists know the scope of what they should expect from mataranga. I think they're only just scratching the surface, and I personally think they don't have a very good idea of what mataranga is. Might be ticking a box on a job application or something. This is us, we're growing very fast, and fortunately we have a very strong Māori student membership. It's now escalating and we need to grow further from it. We're learning very quickly from all of those around us, in particular our colleagues, and you'll hear from Caine very shortly. These are the sorts of fields that we cover. Everything from microbes all the way up to sharks and rays. In a holistic pattern, we're trying to learn to put all of that together. This is what I was asked to think about. And mataranga, what do I think about as a Western style scientist, Pakeha? I see mataranga, and this is a very crude, very brief rendition, as holistic. It's connected. It joins up all of the disciplines, if we're putting that in a crude way. Importantly, and we heard much about this with the previous speaker, it invokes the spiritual world, This is enormously important. And also, as important, it's intergenerational. It goes back through time. Western science, by comparison, tends to be very focused, one discipline at a time by one scientist. They don't tend to walk outside of their fields. It's not connected. You get different types of studies, often on the same problem, but not joined up in the same time or not joined up in the same place. They're separate disciplines. Chemists find it very difficult to talk to ecologists, and the other way around. They just can't seem to connect. It's secular. That's probably not the right word there, but often these days Western scientists are asked to convert their data into dollar signs, to equate what they're finding into what's happened to the cost of living. And often secular science, Western style science, is limited very strictly by time. Once the funding is over, that's it. And often you don't see that information again 5 years later. It's lost. What happens if you put it together? Well, we're experiencing that, and you'll hear particularly from CaineT next. Just some of the huge synergies, some of the awareness that can happen when you join up the advantages from both fields. It provides information that's enormously relevant, that harnesses the best of technology, but interprets it in a holistic, connected way. You can create models, and importantly, because of Mataranga, you can hindcast, you can ground truth those models because you know what it should have been. It adds in cultural and spiritual elements, values. It's enormously important. You can't do that with Western style science. It includes, and once again, this is a very crude term, the corporate knowledge, the memory, going back generations. You know what the system should look like. You know what it should return to if restoration is needed in the environment. I'll give you just a couple of examples of some, I guess, fresh perspectives that I've had that I'd like to share with you from elsewhere. Often you need to see the world through other people's eyes, and in this case, it's from our partners all the way from the other side of the planet in Germany in the Intercoast program. This was designed to look at similar environmental issues associated with water quality, and particularly coasts, and compare and contrast between the Northern Hemisphere and here. And to mix up the disciplines, all of the disciplines. And what we found in the most recent trip, where we took 35 Germans, their students and their professors, out to Raukokiri for an experience to have a look at the connection between the land and the sea, is number one, it became very clear that not only did they get experience in joining up their science, but their senior professor said that all of the students are coming back changed people. They come back with something else here, whole, whereas before they had only parts of themselves exposed. They experienced some of the culture and the spirituality. Now that, many of us tend to take that for granted, but I saw the value of their exposure to all of this. Also out there, we wanted to have a look at just how connected the coasts were to the sea. Our main interest is dirty rivers. I always look at estuaries as a coastal placenta, and here you see the land bleeding into the moana. It's killing, the mud, the sediment is killing off that environment, its ability to create kai moana and keep going. We wanted to have a look at the various catchments and rivers and the connections between them. Places that should look like this now look like this, with forestry and then a loss of sediments. And another thing came to us, actually, that you will already know, but for us it was a learning experience. And that is, you need to look both ways. Once again, this came from our German colleagues. They said, as we came out here, you know, marine scientists, they just tend to look from the beach and the coast, sometimes up into the hills, and wonder what's going on up there. But really, this experience where we went up to the hills and then looked down at the sea taught them a great deal. Now, you look both ways, But Western science doesn't. It tends to, if anything, look down, either through a microscope or to a little patch. We need to learn to be able to look both ways, both upstream and downstream. It's all connected. RENA, another enormous learning exercise. Out of disaster, some benefit. Here it is. We all knew that. The ship broke up, oil came ashore. We thought this might be the worst, but the legacy of RENA is still out at Otaiti, and it's about the metals, the contaminants from the ship itself. These were the questions, and I've shown this slide before. What's the impact? And I've added here going to be, because when the questions were asked, no one knew at the time that the ship was going to break up. You know, the thought was, oh, it's stuck on a rock, it can back off. That wasn't going to be. And then how long to recover? Well, the only way to answer those questions is to know what it was like beforehand. Mataranga. This is where we know what it should be like. We can then quantify the shift or the change from that position. So we adopted, through a new group called Te Māori Moana, and I have Kane, Carlton, who will be here tomorrow, Rion, many others in this room, got together and forged a new way of coming together to have a look at this big issue of the ship and the environmental consequences. And what we did was consult first Kaumatua, customary fisheries officers, iwi leaders in the Iwi Leaders Forum, Hapu. And we understood straight away. They told us, yeah, oil's going to come on this beach. It's going to go into Makatu Harbour a little bit. It'll go all the way out to East Cape. And this was on the day before any oil had even got away from the ship. So we were well advanced. We were able to respond straight away. That day and the following days, we were out there having a look at what the reefs should be like, just in case they change. And this is the group that was formed. It was mixing up all of the different sciences, looking at all of the sciences in the same places over the same times. And importantly, you can see everything is shrouded in Mataranga. It was informed right from the get-go on how we should do it, what we should look for, where we should expect change. Another important feature of this incident is, for the first time, to our knowledge, the concept of the restoration of Māori was enunciated and printed, that this was a hard goal. And as a consequence of that, we were very fortunate to have a number of students who embraced the very difficult task of crossing all of these disciplines and looking at whether they could address the issue of Māori and how it might have been affected by RENA. Now we have one of these students in the room, Kitty, who looked at the microorganisms with the concept that we need to look at everything from the microscopic all the way up to the apex predators. So she had a look at the toxic dinoflagellates, the cyanobacteria that might be influenced by RENA. Was there going to be more PSP in the water, for instance? And then we had Te Puia, who looked at the larval, the baby elements of fishes and kaimoana species coming into Otaiti. These are the intergenerational steps. If the babies are dying, you wouldn't see them in a toxicity test. You wouldn't be able to count them on the reef. But you would know 2 generations on, you have a serious problem. And then Caleb McSweeney from Motiti, he had a look at kaimoana. The sublethal effects. Does the smell of just the sediment influence power? Yes, it does. You can put them into a chamber and have a look at the toxicity in terms of an LV50 or something. You might not find an effect. He found an effect straight away. So these are the types of things that can be added together to address Mataranga and to address the concept of Māori. It needs more, of course, because these items don't address values in the spiritual element. Ngāti Makino and Makatu turned the disaster into a learning experience, and out of this has come some new ideas about clean-up technology using native species. They turned the problem into a science. Did it themselves. Absolutely fantastic work. So this is the value proposition. From a time of event, say RENA, just here, it might be ongoing. Mataranga is ancient knowledge. You know what it should be like beforehand. And importantly, Mataranga will continue long after, ideally, the event is over. Western science is a small package. It comes and goes. So we need to be able to link these together. In this country, because we still have Mataranga, having come from Australia, much of that traditional information has been lost. We cannot do this anymore over there. Here we can, so we need to embrace it. So I'll pass on now to Caine, who will talk to you a little about his experiences, not only with more oil spills probably, but with linking Mataranga in other ways. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, te tuatahi, he mihi a tātou I tau mai nei, me nā waka I roto. Te aroa, tainui, mā tātua, tukitiwi, mina iwi o te mutu nei. Me o rātou whānau, me o rātou hau. Kia ora. Yes, I'm Caine Taiapa, and I think what I'll do today is just share, I guess, a few experiences that we've had back in Tauranga in terms of working with whānau on the ground, looking at what kind of aspirations they have for asserting themselves in resource management, especially the moana, but more importantly, how they express those values and ways to communicate those values to the likes of council bodies or people who make decisions. So I work for a group called Manaki Te Aului. We're a small little group in Tauranga, based off a small collective of tangata whenua and governed by, I guess, a broader spectrum of Pākeke based in the moana. And a lot of our work, I guess, is stemmed from collaborations with the likes of Chris, and especially from events from the arena. But it's those sort of events that make me think about how else can we assert Māori, how else can kaitiakitanga be asserted in those situations. So our main approach for how we address our mahi, I guess, is really looking at the paradigms between our worldviews. We have our worldview of Te Ao Māori, our Mātauranga, all our knowledge that's been generated from that, from our whānau and hapu on the ground, to our iwi members representing the voice, so to speak, to our decision makers. And then we have the other whare, the Western science whare, where the tikanga of Western science is adapted to look at resource management. So the way we approach our mahi is usually in the middle house, or research at the interface is what they call it for academics, I guess. But it's looking at a cross-cultural research paradigm where whānau use their mātauranga, develop their aspirations from that mātauranga, and look at what we can do on the ground, and then look at what kind of science we can use to develop or assist that. I guess I've been fortunate enough to been working with some whānau back in Tauranga for about the last 4 years. What we've been finding is that there's a lot of people on the ground, there's a lot of organisations, there's a lot of iwi and hapu representing their kawa, their tikanga around resource management. And what we were trying to do is, what's all this information that they're collecting? How is it important? And how can we connect that information? Because what we were finding is that each group had a common goal. They had different pieces to the puzzle. And the pieces of that puzzle were to really, in terms of the betterment of the moana. So once we connected all those dots together, started liaising, engaging, sitting down, multiple cups of teas around our whānau, our council members, putting the pieces of the puzzle together to see what we're looking for. And our ultimate goal was always to better our moana, better the awas that flow into the moana, better the ngāhere, better the existence of tangata whenua on that area. A big part of going through this sort of process is really what kind of relationships do you build? And I guess if you look at the word relationship, it is very important. What we tried to do was make sure that our approach is very showed a generous giving both ways. We've got to make sure that making sure that the whānaus that we're liaising with, their aspirations are met, the tikanga is upheld, and the whānaus that we are dealing with, and the research that we're engaging with these whānaus, is more importantly, adversity, looking at what their aspirations are. So in this process, I guess there's many challenges. Me coming from brought up in Tauranga, brought up by my nanny, going to a university and getting a degree and coming back and looking at what our whānau are doing and how can we help. We sort of noticed that there's a lot of challenges. Challenges working with our whānau in terms of our whānau are very busy. They have many pūtai, whether it be on the marae, council bodies, looking at huis. And then from a Western science perspective, there's a point where the communication is lost. What I mean by the communication is lost, and Chris had just touched on it, that a lot of the work that has been involved out of Western science has been really created to look at certain aspects of different elements, the areas that we're involved in. I guess the biggest way we roll our mahi is really looking at outcomes versus outputs. A lot of the mahi, when it has to get resourced, the biggest output from the funder is a report. And the report is used to discuss what you found. For us, we always try and rearrange mahi that we're doing to support outcomes. A lot of those outcomes are developed just through the learnings by the whānau, engulfing ourselves with the whānau and informing those simple kaupapa of whanaungatanga. Working together to fulfill a common goal, unlocking the potential and building the capability in terms of what aspirations do the whānau have. The other one, and this is probably the most important one, is the reconnection of what we're doing. A lot of the things that are happening in Tauranga are just what we're finding is we needing to make a path of how do we reconnect our mātauranga to the moana. How do we reconnect and reclaim that mātauranga to better? What I'm just going to go through now is just a simple example of some of the mahi that we've been doing, some of the work that's involved out of the kōrero from the whānau, and the framework that we've used to sort of capture what we're dealing with. There's a framework that we've used back in Tauranga to really look at how can we use Ngā Tauranga Māori, or the kōrero from the whānau, and what kind of Western science we can use to communicate each other's values. Maybe a generic whakatauki, but it stems from a whakatauki that had happened with one of the groups that we're working with, to really emphasise the reciprocity of the health of the moana and the health of the tangata. So the framework that we developed for this was basically the Tonga Species Health Model Framework. And what we looked at here is how can we build indicators that can communicate to our governing bodies, our decision makers, in terms of progressing cultural values of the moana, and also communicating with our monitors for our Western sciences. Here we used a few elements that have stemmed out of a lot of the health programs from Mason Jury. In terms of this, we looked at the moana as its own entity, having its own mana, and identifying the connection that people have with the moana. So the program that we used to develop this was developing some indicators where whānau could use them in terms of communicating their values of an area that's been either degraded process that we used was basically a wānanga process, where we developed kaupapa, and in this example was kaupona. And then we look at what is the issues, what are the observations that we found about our kaupona. In this reference, we're basically saying that over the years, tangata whenua have identified that our kaupona is depleting. The kaupona that is there, it's unhealthy to eat. And the kaupona that is there, we can't put it on our tables to provide for manaaki on the morrow. So the idea of what we were trying to achieve in this is what tohus can we develop to identify if we're going to fix this area, what would those aspirations be? So the process basically went from what are our observations? The observations are the kaupona is declining. What aspirations do we have for that kaupona? We want to have it sustainably harvested. We want to be able to put it on the table for our people. We want to be able to collect it as whānau and be healthy. And then from that process we develop, how do we know if our aspirations is working? And developing tohus from that identity. And basically getting a suite of ideas or indicators to show is the taonga species in this area healthy, and what tohus around it can we use to relate or connect from the people to the sea. Once we've collected those tohus, we, I guess, create a space for Western science to communicate what we're trying to achieve. So a good example with the kaupona or the taonga species tuangi is that in a lot of areas it's declined, not in abundance but in size. I guess from an ecological perspective, a huge number of tuangis within the area is deemed as in an ecological sense very good, but I guess from a tangata whenua perspective, it's no good putting small clay on the table. So what we had to do was identify what's causing, what science can we use to show that what's causing the effects of this decline in our kaupona species. And we looked at, I guess, different tohu from an ecological perspective in terms of what degrades them, different tohu from an ecological perspective of what decreases their size, and different tohu from an ecological perspective of what makes them disappear. So through this process there are a number of tools that we're trying to identify, and these tools are, I guess, far and wide. But what we try and do is bring different kaupapa in, different people, and connect and reconnect about the different mahi that we're doing. I guess overcoming the challenges within our projects, there are a number of research projects that we've been involved in that essentially were identified or ideally aimed to be hapu-led, and these are just some of them. I guess just to finish off and where we're going to into the present. So the last 4 years we've been working with hapu who've been wanting to insert themselves as kaitiaki within the moana, and now that there's a new shift, I guess, in terms of looking at co-management and co-governance, we're moving towards working with hapu in relevance to actually have a look at what that looks like. What do hapu on the ground and whānau on the ground think of how their involvement in co-management of the moana would be? What kind of tools can we develop to express those hapu values? And what kind of tools can you use to express the dissemination of mātauranga, not as a communication just to decision makers, but also within the hapus itself?